Today we are going to be talking about the nervous system, and what I would like for you to do in this lesson is I've given you a graphic organizer of the nervous system and how it's structured, and as we go over this information, if you would just add the descriptions out to the side in your graphic organizer. The first part of the nervous system that we're going to talk about is the central nervous system, and this is comprised of the brain and the spinal cord. Very easy to tell why it is central to our well-being and our survival. The first part of the central nervous system is the brain. This is considered the core of the nervous system, and the brain is in charge of taking in information from the senses, making sense of it, making decisions, sending commands to the muscles and the rest of the body, and we are going to be covering the brain more in detail over the next couple of days, so we're not going to go more in depth on it right now. The next part of the central nervous system is the spinal cord. The spinal cord is made up of a long bundle of neurons, and the spinal cord actually has a couple different functions. So the outer section is composed of axons and nerves, and the inner section of the spinal cord is composed of cell bodies of neurons, and the outer section is going to carry messages from the body to the brain and from the brain to the body. Basically, it's a pipeline for carrying that information. And one of the main functions of the spinal cord is controlling reflexes. A reflex is something that we do not have control of. It happens automatically. So examples are the pupillary reflex, so that means dilating your pupils as to adjust to the light. Patellar, that's what they do at the doctor when they hit your knee and then it kicks out. And then another example of a reflex controlled by the spinal cord is blinking. So we blink to rehydrate our eyes. All right, let's move on. The next part of the nervous system is the peripheral nervous system, and think of this as the periphery. So, for example, if someone sits on the peripheral edges of the room, that means they're on the outside edges. So peripheral just means it is not central, but it is outside. And all these parts of the nervous system have abbreviations, so you can refer to them as their abbreviations. But the peripheral nervous system is made up of the nerves and neurons that are not within the brain and spinal cord. So basically, it's everything else. The main function of the peripheral nervous system is that it's going to allow the brain and spinal cord to communicate with the sensory systems. So you know what the five senses are. And it's also going to allow the brain and spinal cord to control the muscles and glands of the body. Now, what we see is that the peripheral nervous system can be divided into two major systems. We have the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. The somatic nervous system is the division of the peripheral nervous system that's going to control the senses and the voluntary muscles of the body. So a voluntary muscle is those that control the movement of the skeleton, and these are things that you have control over. You dictate when they happen. So for example, walking, raising your hand, smelling a flower, looking at a picture, those are all things that you are choosing to do. They're under your voluntary control. And take a moment to jot down your own example. Next is the autonomic nervous system, and a big word that I want you to write out next to it as a way to help you remember this vocab term is automatic. So autonomic, think automatic. What this means is this is the part of the peripheral nervous system that controls organs, glands, and involuntary muscles. And something that's involuntary means that it is outside of your control. So some examples. breathing. I know, yes, you can hold your breath, but your body will continue breathing. That's just something that it does, controls involuntarily. Like we mentioned before, blinking, your pupils dilating, your heart beating. These are all things that your body does that's outside of your control. And the autonomic nervous system is going to have two subsystems as well, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. Let me go ahead and talk you through the difference. The sympathetic, the biggest thing that you need to write out to the side to help you remember what this is that it's sympathetic to your everyday life. So the sympathetic nervous system is sympathetic to what you're going through. So this is the part of the autonomic nervous system that prepares you to deal with a stressful situation or a strenuous event. Now, it's easy to think that all stressful events are bad, but there's good stress as well. Maybe you are at an award ceremony waiting to hear if your name is going to be called. That's an example of a good stressful event. Strenuous activity. This is those of you that play sports, things like that, running. That's a strenuous activity on your body, so the sympathetic nervous system is preparing it. This is also referred to as the fight or flight system. So things that the sympathetic nervous system is going to do to prepare your body for fight or flight is the pupils are going to get bigger so you can see the situation. Your heartbeat is going to accelerate as the body is pumping blood. Stress hormones like cortisol that we mentioned before are going to be released. Non-essential bodily functions are going to be shut down. So examples like digestion, excretion. What's interesting is that the parasympathetic nervous system brings things back to normal. So an example is if a person is in a car crash, oftentimes what we'll see is they'll actually soil themselves because the body, once it's calmed down, it is just released that that function after the body comes back down. The mouth is always also going to get dry. And the other thing about the sympathetic nervous system is it's fight or flight. So you're choosing whether you want to engage with the threat or flight means that you're going to flee. Tomorrow we'll be talking about examples within your own life. Next, we have the parasympathetic nervous system, and basically it's the opposite of the sympathetic nervous system. The purpose of the parasympathetic nervous system is to restore your body to normal functioning. So as you're sitting watching this video, more than likely you are at a normal functioning level, and so your parasympathetic nervous system is fully engaged right now. So it's going to do the opposite. Return the pupils, slow the heart rate, slow the breathing. It's going to reactivate those bodily functions, and it's going to tell your glands to stop releasing those stress hormones. And in our unit on stress, we'll learn about what happens when people have difficulty with that. And again, the parasympathetic nervous system is making sure your body is functioning normally, functioning for day-to-day wear. So your heart beating, your breathing's regular, controlling your digestion, etc. All right, and that is the end of our lesson. And tomorrow we'll be doing some activities in which we engage the autonomic nervous system.